Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to hopefully make some money on the internet. Loaded up discussion today. We've got Bitcoin trading past 97K on US-China positive trade progress. We've got New Hampshire officially signing a bill allowing the state to invest in Bitcoin. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the Ethereum Pectra upgrade going live today, bringing the biggest code change since the merge to Ethereum. Will it make a difference? We'll get to that a little bit later. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs as usual, plus a general discussion on market rotations and where liquidity is flowing. So stay tuned for that. Today, I've got Legendary in the co-host seat with me, and I've got co-founder of Pirate Nation and Proof of Play, our partner. Adam is with us on the show, back with us after a little bit of a hiatus, but we got to spend some time IRL in Dubai in the meantime. So that was pretty fun. Either way, we're going to get into all of it in just a second, but just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is any type of advice, financial or otherwise. This market is very risky. We don't know anything for sure. So do your own research at all times and proceed with caution. With that out of the way, going straight to Adam today. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing? How are things on your side? What's up?
Happy to be back in America, in New York.
You missed New York. You missed New York,
New York, yeah. I mean, I love traveling. I thought Dubai was a very interesting place.
It was your first time in Dubai?
That was my first time in Dubai. And if I can help it, maybe my last time.
Such a New Yorker. Such a New Yorker. What did you miss about New York?
It's not necessarily that I miss New York. I mean, my family's here. My friends are like, all that stuff is fine. I can come back to that. But I miss the soul. I think Dubai is like a soulless city. And I felt that daily.
It's a very fair point. I was actually speaking to someone about this today, someone who lives here and spends their time between here and New York. And I think it's to do with the fact that you don't see people, i.e. when you're like moving around, there are no people because everyone's either indoors or in a car. And so I went to this restaurant called the Soul Kitchen, actually, talking about soul. Kind of pulled up to it in a cab. It was a car park. It looked pretty vacant. Didn't know what to expect. As soon as you walk through the doors, there was a lot of soul. There were a load of people. It was like a good atmosphere. But I think partly because of the nature, I mean, this is in defense of Dubai to some degree, but like it's something that I've been thinking about as well. Like, why is it that you feel that you feel this way? You walk in and suddenly it was like all this energy, but like you wouldn't have known it 5 seconds before because of the way the city's designed, because it's so hot. Everyone's moving around in cars and indoors, and you don't really get to see people congregating or interacting, which I think gives people a lot of meaning sometimes. So that was one reflection, literally on Soul Kitchen, talking about the soul.
I tried to bend the city to my will, and I attempted to walk around, and
did you?
I would not recommend it. It was not a good idea.
Yeah, difficult place to navigate on foot for sure. Legendary, catching up with you. How are things your side? About to get into it in terms of the market stuff. Actually looking pretty positive, but how are things with you?
Yeah, Jim. Market's looking good. I'm doing well. I saw Adam posting once he was back in New York. I don't know what sort of parade was that? Where like New York? I mean,
that was Arcade Fire. The band Arcade Fire. I went to a show at a venue that is 100 years old, so older than every single thing in Dubai times 5, and a venue that like Ella Fitzgerald used to play at, and Etta James, and Frank Sinatra. Live Nation's paid like $85 million to restore. It's like the most beautiful venue, amazing Arcade Fire concert. And then they marched the whole audience out into the street and finished the concert in the middle of the streets of Brooklyn. So you can't do that in Dubai.
It's beautiful, but you're playing a very risky game, flexing the age of buildings in front of.
I was going to say the same thing. We're talking about history.
I grew up in a house that was built in 1430 something. So basically
100 years. 100 years.
100 years is quite new. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. I will not mess with the Europeans when it comes to historical age of buildings.
The only thing we can flex on while the entire continent is on a decline. So
let us take my smackdown on the age of buildings.
Yeah, one of the only things the Europeans have going for it, the fact that they've existed and done more things for longer. Okay, look, let's get into the main stuff today. We've got a lot of interesting news to cover as usual. Let's start with the price action, getting into the majors first, get you up to speed with what is going on there. We have we can get this on the screen. Bitcoin up 3% to 90. Oh, we've gone back to 97k. That's nice. Up 3% to 97k. We've got ETH also up 2%, still somehow just at 1.8k though. XRP is up a couple of percent to $2.14. BNB is up a percent to $604. Solana's up almost 3% at $147. Getting into the meme coin side of things, we have Doge's up 4% to 17 cents. Pepe's up 5, Trump's up 3, Bonk's up a couple. Bitcoin's actually down 8%. Just still holding $1, but actually red compared to everything else, which is green on the meme side, which is interesting to observe. Ledge, do you have any thoughts there? I was talking to someone last couple of days, being like, every one of these accelerations of meme coins when they explode up, as the cycles go on, it seems like they're getting lower and lower. I don't want to put a curse on it, but how much higher can Fartcoin go? Everyone who wants Fartcoin and is obsessed with Fartcoin, thinks it's the most hilarious coin in the world, owns it already. So who else is left to buy? I don't know. That's the question I'm trying to answer. And I think I'm leaning towards the negative there.
You haven't gotten me yet. It hasn't been funny enough for me to buy. So
will it ever be funny enough for you to buy though?
At $1, I don't think so. It's got to be a lot funnier. Maybe it'd be funnier at like 30 cents or 40 cents, but I think it's
okay. So Adam's not the marginal buyer here at $1 billion. Ledge, what do you think?
I'm not a marginal buyer at $1 billion either. I missed buying it when it was at the bottom, so I'm not going to chase it right now. But it's interesting to see that it basically, performance-wise, kind of is mirroring the broader recovery of AI as well. We said that the total agentic market cap
got it, yeah,
100% over the last, 2 weeks. Fartcoin is up 118% over the last month. Obviously, is up a bit more if you go back into the depths of March, where it hit 25 cents. But it seems to be the leading meme for the broader recovery, and it's then even, I would say, yeah, it's certainly also then outperforming the broader AI agent market cap. But a lot of capital just fluctuated into Fartcoin and has said, if something is recovering, this is the one to lead that run back. But I have no clue how small basically this second, or how big this second roller coaster loop will be. So I'm not a buyer at $1. Could go up, but the upside is too little for me, to be honest.
Okay. So I agree with you there. Something I want to share here, because this is how I'm thinking about it. I'm going to share my screen. Looking at WIF, right, as the coin which was one of the ones that like caught fire really, really fast and really aggressively in the kind of last cycle. Don't know how we refer to all these cycles now, because I don't know if we're in specifically a new one. But if you look back towards its inception, WIF went from 30, 40 cents, which Fartcoin was at like not so long ago. Well, actually, it kind of dipped and it's gone back. And it exploded up to 4 within what? So we're here like February, March, and by the start of April, it was at 4. So it's like really ferocious explosion up. And I'm just wondering, like, even if Fartcoin was going to go up, what's it got in it left? Like a couple of X max. But I'm already thinking that it's if I just bring up that chart now instead. So you had that initial explosion up. Look, if you kind of compare those charts, right? You in this one as well, it wasn't as an aggressive explosion up, but it was like a similar explosion up towards 2. It came all the way back down, started coming back up. It's gone past 1 now. Where's it going to go? It's going to go to 4. Really? I don't know. I just, yeah, that's my thinking. Any final thoughts there before I carry on?
Not for me.
Yeah, sorry to FUD the Fartcoin, but I just yeah, I don't know. It's everything else is green today. Right, let's just keep it moving then. Pengu's up 3%. WIF's up 5, SPX is flat, Doge is up, PopCat's up 10, Turbo's up 3, AI16Z, you're right, the AI stuff seems to be down today as well. The things that maybe have moved hardest are down a touch. That AI16Z is down 6. Dog is up 9, Mog's up 7. Okay, so kind of across the board here, kind of single digit green, I would say in general, maybe with AI dropping down a little bit. Getting into the headlines themselves, want to catch up with those. As we mentioned, Bitcoin is trading past 97K on US-China positive trade progress. Legendary is going to break that down in a bit. We've got New Hampshire officially signing the bill to allow the state to invest in Bitcoin. Pretty big news, historic news. We'll break down those details a little bit later as well as put that in context of some of the other important Bitcoin pieces of news that have been coming out recently. And then finally, Ethereum Pectra upgrade goes live today, brings the biggest code change since the merge to focus on improving staking and wallet features. Some notable price action, some other alts really moving. Rekt is up 25% on the day because Abstract Apple, their new drink, is going on sale today. It's up 90% on 7 days, back to 60 million market cap. So that'll be interesting to see how, so that's obviously rallying, going into the sale of these physical drinks that OV and the team there are going to be putting on sale. Movement, on the other hand, is down 13% to 1.5 billion on news. Rishi, the former leader of Movement, has now been terminated, who's obviously under investigation for a little bit. He's now terminated. New leadership's appointed, down to 1.5 billion FDV, but that came out at 10 bill. Absolutely outrageous price action on Movement. Kaito is up 40% in the last 24 hours to $1.20 with NFT spiking to 2.5 ETH. And Hype, as the kind of best performing L1, or at least competing with Sui for that title. Sui's up maybe just a touch today, but Hype's up 8% on the day to $21. So that trade is going quite nicely. That's that. Anything that we need to know on the NFT side?
Yes, let's take a quick look. Doodles do continue to move up as we have more and more details on how the token will be distributed and what partner communities will benefit from that. It is now up 6% on the day, up 31% over the last 7 days, and sitting at 3.76 ETH. As you also have said, the Kaito NFTs have moved, just to put those numbers into perspective as well. The Genesis NFTs up 27% over the last 24 hours, up 44% over the last week. In terms of the other majors, not too much movement going on. Pudgies, Apes are mostly flat over the last day, and also mostly flat over the last week, with Pudgies being up 3% and Apes being up 1%.
Good stuff. Good update on the NFT side. Getting into the rest of the roundup to get you up to speed. Some other interesting bits of news here that you probably need to know. Jack Mallers launches Bitcoin-backed lending with Strike. Draws a little bit of criticism for being centralized when you can basically borrow against your wrapped Bitcoin on Aave already. Solana name service to launch their SNS token. Eligibility checker is live. If you ever created a Solana name, you might want to check if you're eligible. People are hoping that is some type of generational wealth. ENS drop, the equivalent drop for Ethereum, worked out very, very well for people. I don't know if this one will work as well, but worth checking. The UK government has ruled out a Bitcoin reserve because they are so good at keeping up with the tech and making sure the country is ready for the future. Tokyo listed Metaplanet buys another 555 Bitcoin for around $53 million. Doodles announced their Dude token to launch on Solana. Sol Strategies buy $18 million of Sol tokens with first tranche of $500 million debt financing. And as I said, Abstract Apple flavor for the Rekt Drinks will go on sale today. Legendary. That is the Web3 roundup. Before we get into the main headlines, which I think are super important, actually, specifically for Bitcoin, anything catching your attention here? What do you want to talk about?
I quite like what Rekt Drinks is doing. As opposed to, you did not invest neither in any of the rounds, but I like how they have, on the one hand, been focusing on getting some distribution going outside of crypto as well, but also like really going into the niche of saying we're gonna have an abstract related flavor and just capture an L2 with the attention that an L2 is receiving right now. in the extended pudgy community with a drink, where I would have not said that before that there was necessarily a big overlap between Rekt guys and that Rekt ecosystem and abstract or the pudgy community. So I think that's a pretty smart move to get this attention.
Yeah, I like it. They were always obviously going to do an additional drop. I think Ovi in general has always been super creative in the way that he's just kind of moved with Metis in general, like as a trader, as an artist. Remember, he's an artist in his own right, and now as a founder, always managing to capture pockets of attention, very nicely. So,
drink. I had some.
did you? Which one? The Apple one or the original?
Abstract Apple. It was
Have
good.
you tried the original, Adam? I've still got like a ton of crates.
I have not. No, this was my only experience with it, and it was good. I actually met him in person for the first time, and that's where I got the drink.
Very nice. What's your review? You're a bit of a foodie. You've got your review system for your pizzas and your other restaurants.
It's delicious. Delicious. I think it should have spiked the token 80%. Why only 40%?
That is true. Well, it's 90% on the week, so you're not wrong.
Then I think that's fair. No, I think it was delicious, and I'm wishing him well. CPG is a really interesting space to be in. It's completely opposite to the crypto space. Like, it's physical, it requires distribution. Like, one of my closest friends runs a large CPG brand, and so I've watched him grow the business for about 8 years now, and seeing all the challenges, and it's a fun space to be in. But it has a lot of the high highs. Like, you either have explosive growth or you're kind of like dead in the water, and your plan is to get bought by just like a giant, basically. Like, you want to get bought by Pepsi, Coke, like that's your exit strategy. There's very few companies that attempt to be standalone businesses.
Yeah, I think that's right. They've got certainly an interesting value prop, right? For the right person thinking that this is an interesting go-to-market strategy. You've got all of these like crazy online super fans. You've got this token that seems to go wild every time you'd like do something. I'm sure someone might look at that and think, okay, this is certainly interesting. Whether it completely makes sense from a business perspective, I don't know, because I'm not from that business world in that specific thing.
I could share some stories offline about like the behind the scenes of what it takes to get distribution. It's a messy game. It's a really messy game.
I can imagine, right? I can imagine. It's kind of, I mean, you've got some potentially offline stories as well about how to get distribution in centralized exchanges. Maybe it's all the same. Like trying to get in front of the customer in either the retail store or the centralized exchange. I suspect it's all a challenge. That's quite difficult. So, yeah, interesting stuff. The other thing I wanted to share, or the question I wanted to ask maybe, was about this Bitcoin lending stuff. Ledge, do you have a view on where this Bitcoin lending takes place? I know a lot of people are either invested in or super keen on unlocking Bitcoin, in the sense that they want to, no one wants to sell their Bitcoin. They want to borrow against it. And I think there was a little bit of a movement to say, like, look, BTC Fi is going to happen on Bitcoin. Arguably, a lot of that stuff can happen on ETH already with no issues. We've also noticed, we've been speaking about how you can, via unit on Hyperliquid, buy Bitcoin, and now you can actually borrow against it on the Hyper EVM. Do you have any view about where this stuff will happen? Obviously, this new offering from Jack Mallett at Strike is going to be, a slightly more centralized option. Do you have any view on that?
I think it will happen in multiple places. I think that you'll have a more centralized institutions who will build their own ways to integrate with BTC. You'll obviously have the entire EVM ecosystem trying to leverage various wrapped versions of Bitcoin because this DeFi infrastructure already exists on the ETH side of things. As for BTC Fi, that's the tough one. That's very hard for me to judge from a quote unquote outside perspective, because other than holding BTC, I'm not very much involved in the Bitcoin community. I think Ordinals had to fight a lot of resistance with some of the more purists in the BTC community. So I can see the same line of thought happening with BTC Fi. Ultimately, but that's also me coming from this like ETH thinking perspective. It would make sense to enable that in a native way. And we've seen it work with something like Liquidium, which was a protocol for ordinals lending, which I used and worked quite smoothly. But if BTC Fi were to play out on Bitcoin itself, I do think that this would be the one that takes the most time to be broadly accepted. But I don't know if this will be the case.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, I think if you're a Bitcoin whale and you don't want to sell, like you haven't sold up until this point, like I'm never selling, being able to unlock liquidity makes a ton of sense. The other BTC Fi, I guess if that's a new term that we're using, that I've seen was Coinbase made an attempt in this, which is like put your Bitcoin, take a loan. I have no idea what the usage metrics are on that. I thought it was a really exciting announcement. But the interesting is like, are those Bitcoin whales willing to interact on like hyper EVM? Like, is that their, like, it's an EVM, it's hyper liquid. It feels like it's not their vibe from like the limited information I have about the like Bitcoin community, like as like a community itself. But from a conceptual standpoint, I think great idea. And we'll be able to see the metrics. Like that's the best part about this. Like we can revisit this in a month or two and see what the usage is.
Yeah, the reason why I'm very keen to keep an eye on it is because I just have a sense that a lot of this activity is going to go to hyperliquid. I feel like just the way that they keep shipping their products so fast, like whatever asset it is, it seems to be the case that if it proves to be an asset that you want, rather than messing around on bridging around between different chains, they're just going to ship it like really, really fast and just have it available there. And then people will feel like, well, why would I need to be anywhere else? And if it's going to try to house all of finance, then I think they're just going, it will just end up being the place that you lend because that is the place where you end up buying. I get the sense that that's the direction it's going in. So that's just like kind of an instinctive feeling. But as you say, we'll track the metrics and see if that plays out. One final thing I wanted to touch on before we get into the main headlines today, just incredible volatility across the market. Like obviously, okay, Bitcoin moved up just a couple of percent. Rekt's up 25% on the day, maybe to do with, a little bit of IRL news. Kaito up 40% in 24 hours. Hype up 8%. Movement down 13%. Adam, you kind of came back from Dubai. I think the Pirate Nation token had pumped hugely. You kind of, I don't know if you felt obligated to write up a explanation for what was going on, whether you thought it was like just general market stuff or company specific stuff, but how are you reading the market now where, things seem to have bottomed out. Things are moving on their way up again. What's your view?
Well, with regards to the Pirate token, like the community was like, Adam, go back to Dubai. Like there's a direct correlation between Adam being in Dubai and the price being up. And I was like, you can't send me back. But yeah, I mean, right now things are quiet. I think that when you're reading the news, you see a lot of, Middle East, India, Pakistan. There isn't a lot of talk about tariffs. Like the economy stuff is relatively quiet. People have either forgotten or in this lull. As soon as we have some clarity one way or another, we're going to see some price action. But I think, we're in like goldfish mode on the markets. When I speak to my TradFi friends, a bunch of them went all cash, like around, like right before all the tariff stuff happened, and they haven't come back in yet. Whether or not that's a good move, I have no idea. So they're still cautious and they don't believe that we're out of the woods yet. We're just in a lull. So right now, I think the market's just responding to the fact that there is no news. And no news, I guess people are interpreting as good news versus like there is good news and people are excited and exuberant about it. I think if we do get some good news, whatever that means, whether it's reduced tariffs or like good trade deals, then I think we'll see things rip. And then probably it goes the other way as well. If we get some surprising or shocking news that we've gotten in the past, people were like, oh, right, this is still happening. This is still ongoing. We're still within that 90-day period. So
I think you're probably right. And the thing that we noticed not long ago was when like there was still kind of like either neutral news or bad news coming out and the market just stopped responding. As kind of like, okay, it's got no more appetite to go any lower. And as you say, like, and Legendary is going to go into this in a second, you know, murmurings of some positive conversations with China, and Bitcoin goes up 3%, for example. And then everything like runs aggressively. So I definitely take your point there. Want to bring Funky into the conversation. Funky, your hand is raised. Welcome to the stage, my man. What's your thought here on the kind of bigger volatility on alts? Bitcoin up 3%. We're going to touch on the bigger kind of macro conversation in a sec with Legendary, but wanted to bring you in first.
Yeah, thanks, BGM guys. I just want sorry for being bouncing in and out, having connection issues, but I wanted to touch on the BTC-Fi stuff very briefly, because to the question that was raised, from Adam, are Bitcoin whales going to play with some of these other protocols? My answer is yes, because of our direct connections to the major custodians, Ledger Enterprise, BitGo. These clients that have a lot of Bitcoin are now in the point, many of them, they're probably not going to full stack and just clip it all into something like this, but they are looking to earn yield on their Bitcoin. And the statistic that I think just sort of underscores how massive this opportunity is for BTC-Fi, regardless of which protocol you're talking about, 0.3% of Bitcoin currently is used in DeFi, in some wrapped version. And it's 30% of ETH is using DeFi. So you think of that as a 100x opportunity to, Adam's point, just unlocking that trapped liquidity. Yeah. The biggest digital asset is a massive, massive thing. So a lot of protocols that we're working with that are trying to build tooling around this, and there's multiple ways that this is probably going to happen. But I think it's going to take some time to mature. But it's ultimately a boon for Bitcoin in the space in general.
Yeah, I like it. I agree with that thesis so much. I really, really think it's such a huge opportunity, as you say. It's actually probably one of the biggest opportunities in the whole space, if someone can convince people. And actually, just the connected business opportunity here is the insurance industry. Like, maybe a lot of people don't want to put their Bitcoin in places because they think something's going to get hacked or something's going to go wrong. And I think the insurance industry is developing. I know some people in London who've been building kind of solutions where if you're depositing into certain sets of protocols, you have like certain protections, but it needs to scale up basically to kind of cover your Bitcoin in the variety of places. And people want to be secure when it comes to their Bitcoin, and I completely understand why. So that the insurance industry needs to catch up, and I think that they are trying to do so. Right.
Before we move on, I just wanna throw it to Oxy, who has joined us on stage, because he was very helpful in the YouTube comments as he had a chance to play around with the platform and get a sense and feeling for the numbers. Oxy, if you're available to speak, welcome to the stage.
Yeah, thank you. Nothing too much to add. I was just going to add also, sexes tend to do a lot of staking with like consumer funds as a main, like a revenue generation route. So if they have another opportunity with Bitcoin, like I'm sure they'll be playing.
Yes. Yeah, I think yeah, a lot of them offer staking, and I as I think Adam mentioned as well, they're trying to do Bitcoin lending as well. So they'll certainly play their role. Appreciate that. Ox, let's keep it moving then into the first main headline. Staying on Bitcoin, we've got two back-to-back headlines, which I think are pretty important. Legendary general macro, the Legendary general macro update brought to you by Legendary. What's going on? Why is Bitcoin up 3%? We're hitting 97K again, which is very nice. But what's going on?
It's quite a lot of volatility in the markets. The Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, has said he is traveling to Switzerland, and economic security is national security. President Donald J. Trump is leading the way both at home and abroad for a stronger, more prosperous America, he said, and he's looking forward to having talks with leading representatives on economic matters from the People's Republic of China. This is the news that has caused this surge in Bitcoin and made it go beyond 97K. That also has had a very nice impact on Asian equities, which have moved in the morning as well. The index in Hong Kong is up 1.7%. In mainland China, the CSI 300 climbed 0.6% on that news. And the timing of that is very interesting, as an analyst has pointed out, because people were de-risking a bit yesterday and the days before. We talked about that on the show, that gold was moving up. We are expecting the Fed not to do any sort of rate cuts today. And for that reason, the market has moved a bit risk off. But now with this more positive news, and with the anticipation of a change in the situation and those drastic tariffs between the US and China over the weekend when these negotiations will take place, the market is moved a bit more risk on. Another point is, and you mentioned it briefly at the start of the show, B, is this conflict that we are seeing between India and Pakistan, which is intensifying. I think they're reportedly attacking 9 sites in Pakistan and Kashmir. That was according to Reuters. And this also has added a bit more volatility to the market. And could that geopolitical uncertainty plus macroeconomic volatility could be another reason to send BTC higher as the market is hedging against that uncertainty?
So what is your view? I mean, you mentioned towards the end there, you think the Bitcoin will go higher because, I mean, historically it just trends lower, but as things sell off with conflict, you think now it's a chaos hedge and it, you know, moves to the positive. Personally, I think it seems like those types of conflicts, as horrible as it may sound, I think all of these conflicts now do not affect the market. If it's not in the States, but if it's not between US and China, I think the market does not care anymore, whether it's Israel, Palestine, whether it's India, Pakistan. Like, I know people here care. I've been having conversations with people in the Middle East about those regions, and I'm sure lots of people are affected. It's not nice to be going through, but my view is that it seems to be the case the market is just not really getting affected by those at the moment. What's your take?
I think what we've seen is when you have an actual invasion happening, like in Ukraine, you will see the market dip on that. When you have a massive uncertainty, a large scale attack that happens in the Middle East, you will see the market dip on that. But as you said, it very quickly also recovers from that. And if you have some sort of underlying tension that, you know, unfortunately continues and sustains, it's not really stopping the market from pumping. And I feel like this chaos hedge is something we've seen being articulated a bit more with the volatility under Trump, and ultimately the question where to move money if we don't know what the dollar does, if we don't know how the policy is going to look like next week, if we don't know how tariffs will change overnight. A lot of money has moved ultimately into gold, and money is moving into BTC. So maybe now this chaos hedge is also getting a broader appeal when it comes to geopolitical conflicts as well.
Okay, yeah, I kind of feel like the biggest conflict in the world at any time is the one that will move the market. So, like, when that was Russia Ukraine, then that was the thing that could move the market. But now that America wants to reset geopolitical relations with China and the world, that becomes the biggest conflict. And then other people, sure, you know, the conflict will continue to persist, but it's just not going to move the market in the way it did because all eyes and attention is on the biggest conflict, which is the most impactful. Kind of feel like that's my read of the situation. Adam, want to bring you in here. Any thoughts on this kind of the macro situation, Bitcoin strength, which we're going to be talking about even more as you get into the next piece of news, because I think there's all kinds of other things that are happening for why it's so strong, irrespective of this kind of chaos hedge narrative. But anything you'd like to add here?
My friends who are all, you know, think I'm a scammer rugger because I work in crypto, the only asset they're willing to touch is Bitcoin. So, you know, you ask who the marginal buyer for Bitcoin is, or who the marginal buyer for Farcoin is, don't know. But who's the marginal buyer for Bitcoin? It's theoretically anyone who's interested in like a somewhat or a risk on asset, inclusive of my father, who for a while was a holdout, and then he bought, I think, iBit. So there are, you know, and my sisters also. So
when did they buy, Adam? Like, just out of curiosity, like obviously a lot has happened since the start of this year.
I got my sisters into ETH at 4K.
No, you didn't. Please tell me you didn't.
No, it was like 2,500. But my sister has been in Bitcoin since maybe like 70-ish.
Okay.
And my dad, like low 80.
Okay.
My other sister was a holdout.
Nice. But to your point, like, look, I know some of this stuff is anecdotal, but I've also shared a similar anecdote, which is all of my friends who were kind of messing around with me in 2021. I know I took it way more seriously and ended up quitting my job and ending up in this industry. But like all of the people who were curious, crypto curious back in 2021, played with NFTs, maybe made some money, maybe lost some money. They've just moved on with their lives. Like nothing about this cycle with them in the meme coin casino drew them back. I know it drew some retail in, but nothing about that tempted them in any way to come back. Most of them are still happy to have some Bitcoin. Some of them still hold some ETH because, you know, historically that was always like the second one. And for that reason, but none of this other stuff is compelling. Like it's proven to be incredibly speculative, complete hyper gambling. And I think an obvious point to make is normal people don't like to hyper gamble. That's why when you walk past casinos, you walk past betting shops, the majority of people are not in there. Yes, you have groups of people who like to do it, but most people are not hyper gamblers. So I agree with you. If all of the use case that we can find here is for consumer crypto is different variations of gambling games, if anything, that's even more bullish Bitcoin because people do not want, or people en masse don't want to. Sure, we can find people within crypto to find PMF with for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm with you on that stuff. But you know, building on those points when it comes to Bitcoin, we also had, and I'm going to place this in context as well. We also had the news yesterday that New Hampshire has become the first state to allow the investment of its public funds into crypto assets, with its governor signing the new law on Tuesday. So this bill allows the investment of up to 5% of public funds in a digital asset that has at least $500 billion in market cap. And so that's like, it's broadly drafted in that sense, but obviously it's only Bitcoin who meets that threshold at the moment. The lawmaker behind the bill said that they wanted the new law to embrace financial innovation and help diversify the state's investments to mitigate inflation caused by the federal government, caused by the federal government's unending money printing. So it's, you know, the same reason that everyone gives for why they might want to hold Bitcoin, kind of squarely pointing the finger at the Fed in that respect. They're not the only people who've been doing this though, right? Like Arizona just last week were ready to, or it passed the House and it passed the Senate, but the legislation was vetoed by the governor. Florida has also withdrawn its own effort, joining a number of other states where the reserve push has fizzled out. North Carolina seems like that's on the right track also. So it's pretty historic. It's like the first state that has now got this mandate to go and purchase Bitcoin, should it wish to, and decide how much of that 5% of its public funds that they want to allocate to Bitcoin. Very, very historic. Yes, some other states are trying to go in that direction. Some successfully, some not successfully at the moment, but this is the official ball rolling on the state level. Obviously, in the background, you've got two other factors. You've got the Fed, on the federal level, you've got Trump calling for his administration to set up its own stockpile in some way. They're still examining like how that's perfectly going to be done. They said it's not going to be using public funds. They've got to try to think of creative ways to acquire Bitcoin rather than just market buy it with people's tax dollars. I don't think that's going to be the solution. But then the other thing, which I think is as important, or I don't know if it's as important, but just hugely important, was the Cantor news the other day. When I spoke about that, I thought this was as big a news as almost like the ETFs. Maybe proportionally, it's not exactly correct, but I thought it was incredibly important that a company which is majority owned by Tether, partnering up with SoftBank, one of the world's leading investment holding companies, are coming together to just buy Bitcoin. Like the whole point of them is to buy Bitcoin. They said 21 expects to launch with more than 42,000 Bitcoin, which would make it the third largest Bitcoin treasury in the world as of today. Cantor, remember, being the firm which is run by Howard Lutnick's son, and it was the firm which he was in charge of for a long period of time. Big Bitcoin bull by himself. Obviously, his company is a separate entity now to him, and he's not in charge there. But you know, you can see the direction this is going. I think it's incredibly, incredibly bullish. So those are the two things that are going on. Besides just the state level, you've got the federal level kind of figuring out what it's going to do. You've got these Bitcoin treasury companies spinning up more and more. So I think that's huge news. Just going to stop there, Ledge, to come to you for your thoughts. Then want to hear from you, Adam. Would probably be wrong not to go to Funky, our Bitcoin. Oh, hands raised already. Of course, his hand is raised. Got to get to him as well in a second. Ledge, coming to you first. Thoughts on this in general?
Yeah, obviously very happy to see that we had the anticipation of Arizona potentially winning that race until it was vetoed by the governor. And I think the first state is the hardest, and hopefully that sets a very, very positive example for other states and hopefully many of them to follow. The thing that I'm particularly curious to also hear from Funky is on the situation in Florida, where, as you have said, it has been indefinitely postponed, because Funky obviously is not only the US correspondent, but also official Florida correspondent as a Floridian himself. So quite curious to get a bit more insight into that as well.
Yeah, Funky, let's just go to you here then. What's going on in Florida? You said it was going to pass, man. What's going on?
I'm just going to start B by saying I didn't think anybody could ever make me more bullish on Bitcoin than you just did, listing out those strings of things that are falling. My buddy Sam,
connecting the dots.
Yeah, who it was brilliantly done. My buddy Sam Arms, who's the president of FBBA, he's the one who has the really direct connections to the legislators. Couple things. He put out a post that said that was somewhat of a misleading statement. So what's happened is that the actual legislature, that they voted to extend the session, which is now going to go, I think, till June 5th or 6th or something like that. So some of the bills that were being highly prioritized need to be heard first. It's not totally dead. I don't think it's totally withdrawn unless something's happened in the last, say, 18 hours that I haven't read yet. One of the things that happened during the first Senate hearing was somebody who has no connection to crypto whatsoever said, "What about XRP?" And so he's wondering if part of the reason why it got slowed down was the fact that it was a Bitcoin-only bill, much like you just mentioned, the one in New Hampshire that just passed was something where it's digital assets up to 500 billion. Of course, it only makes Bitcoin the only one. But he thinks if it doesn't pass this session, he thinks that lobbyists have already gotten involved, trying to make sure it's more of a broader digital asset investment opportunity for the state of Florida. They invested in Solana, for instance, in the ICO, but through an investment fund way back when. So that was one of the reasons they wanted to have their own Bitcoin self-custody kind of state reserve that they could control rather than having to pay fees, for going through a hedge fund or something like that. So he thinks that if it doesn't pass this session, which, admittedly the odds are now looking dim, that it will come back next session. And the way that it works in Florida, when it's an election year, the session happens earlier. So this could pass as early as January of 26 if it doesn't pass right now. So it's only like a 6-7 month difference. And then it'll probably be a broader bill that includes other digital assets as well.
Like it. Excellent summary, Funk. Appreciate it. Super helpful just to get that additional context. Adam, from your perspective, any final points here on the Bitcoin side? Seems to be lining up very nicely. Any further points?
No, I think you guys have all nailed it. I just need to figure out my exit from ETH into Bitcoin finally. I'm just waiting for my happy price.
Well, don't do it just yet, because ETH feeding into the next headline. You might find this particularly bullish. We need to get you up to speed with what's going on in the ETH universe. We've got a big headline. The Pectra upgrade is live today. This is the biggest code change since the merge for Ethereum. So you might get super bullish. Adam, you might want to buy more even potentially. So just don't sell the ETH yet. Legendary, give us the lowdown. What does Adam need to know before he buys more ETH?
Absolutely, yeah. As you said, the Pectra upgrade is live. It did go live roughly 1.5 hours ago. It is the most massive code upgrade ever since the merge, and it covers quite a few things, to be honest. So I'm going to break down the individual Ethereum improvement proposals in a bit, but focuses on greater scalability, reducing transaction fees, more security, and the part that I'm most excited for, introducing smart accounts. So breaking that down in terms of the main proposals that were part of this upgrade, it is EIP 7251 to increase the maximum balance of validators. That is an increase from 32 to 2048 ETH. Just allows you, if you're a large validator, to operate in a more efficient way. Adjusting a dynamic adjustment of the blob capacity, that is to help with scalability. Then also improvements when it comes to the chain processing of validated deposits, as well as withdrawals from staking controlled by smart contracts, as well as blob scaling itself. And ultimately, 7702, the account abstraction bit, the one I find most interesting, which is a proposal to allow external property accounts, EOAs, to be temporarily converted into smart contract accounts. That then allows functions such as grouping transactions and paying gas fees with alternative tokens, ultimately massively helping with the usability and user experience for ETH users, because I've said it many times, if you have an asset that goes down 50% over the last year or so, but you're still bound to use parts of that infrastructure because of the gas fees, and you can now have alternative tokens, you can use stables. That is pretty nice to see. And just had to laugh before because someone, you mentioned Adam, waiting for his target price to hit to sell ETH or to buy more ETH. Someone in the comments under the official announcement by the ETH account that Pectra is live had asked, does this upgrade include the price go up technology?
So I think the technology, like the ETH Foundation, their ability to execute on complicated technology things is pretty much unmatched, I would say. But maybe I'm thinking about this the wrong way. If you can use another token to transact on ETH, so on the one hand, it's good because it removes friction, and like maybe there's a way to account abstract and therefore bring more and more apps. More apps means more usage. But one of the value props was it's like a sink, right? Like using ETH is a sink to use the chain.
Correct.
If you no longer need to use ETH to use the chain, does that mean that ETH is less useful? And so that's the piece that I'm
all
like,
of those things are correct.
Yeah, misunderstanding, or like, so how do you reconcile these? Which one is better?
You don't. You absolutely don't. This is the thing I've come to realize, like everything that you just said is correct. And I think one of the things that happens, it doesn't matter if like crazy ETH bulls are listening to this, but like, I think what I've realized is that super smart people are doing a bunch of things. And sometimes us as like participants in the industry think, oh, but they're really smart people. Like maybe there's like something that I'm missing. It's kind of like the way that you're just reacting, right? It's like, maybe I'm missing something. Like, is there something? And then you have to tell yourself like, no, hang on a sec, I'm actually a really smart person as well. I've done all this stuff. Like, everything that you just laid out is like a great question. And there's no answer to that, because the thing that you just described is correct. ETH, and the reason why I'm particularly strong on this, or feel particularly strongly on this, is because in the crazy bull market, or like as Solana went on its crazy run in 2024 last year, right? I was offside in the sense, okay, I bought a ton of Solana on the way up. I bought it like $30, $40, $60, whatever. Kept buying, but I never really, I didn't touch my core ETH position because my thesis was just as you described. It's so useful. I really thought ETH was a very, very useful asset. I could throw a ton of it over to Blast when I needed to. That then earned me money. I threw a ton of it into Eigenlayer and EtherFi, which was very, very profitable. And it was the only asset that at that point in time that you could use to provide liquidity into certain protocols. The reality now, and that would be the thing I'd say to defend ETH. It's like, okay, Solana's going up in price. Okay, whereas ETH has stayed the same. I'll say, okay, that's true. But ETH has yielded me all these other opportunities. So if I put X amount of ETH into EtherFi and it made me loads of money, it's like, okay, well, maybe the ETH price is the same, but you don't have that same upside opportunity on Solana, in my opinion. That reality has just changed. Like, you don't need ETH anymore to actually do the transactions, and B, you don't need ETH to provide liquidity for things. When I went into Bearer Chain 2 months ago, you had two options. You could go in with USDE via Concrete, or you could go in via Stakestone with ETH. And I did both. And what happened? My 20 ETH in via Stakestone when ETH was at 3K, like just got eviscerated in value. And I'm probably going to claim, like literally today is the day I can claim some rewards from that. And it's got eviscerated, right? Whereas at least if I go in with stable coins, I know that the amount that I put in and whatever rewards on top will be rewards actually on top, not like me losing a ton of value on the primary investment and then and getting some rewards on top of that and ending up being down. So I think all your questions are valid. And,
this whole time, you never told me you were still holding ETH. You're holding out on me.
When what?
This whole time, you've been pretending like you weren't also an ETH holder.
No, I went into that vault and got rid of that ETH as well. I mean, I'll still find some. ETH, the thing is, it was so useful. It ended up in all kinds of places. I'd find some on Blast. I'd find some on Base. I'd find some, like, it's all over the place. It's hard to get out the asset you've been in for so long because it was genuinely so useful and it was awesome.
So yeah, if we see a 10x explosion in apps building on ETH for whatever reason now, I don't know how that translates. So the person who commented on the post, does this upgrade include the number go up technology? Remains to be seen.
I think the only thing, and look, this is just my working thesis. The only thing that you can be certain when it comes to, remember this stuff is separate to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's on its own number go up technology based on all the pieces of news that we just spoke about today. You really, really needed Solana to buy memes and to like participate in that. You really, really needed ETH in 2021 to buy NFTs to participate in that. And before that, I believe you needed it to participate in various farming stuff. You needed it for ICOs and all this stuff. What do you need ETH to do? Like if ETH can find things that you need it for, then beautiful. But you're going to need it again, I think, to participate in some type of economy. I think that will be the way that it finds value accrual again, because unfortunately, and this actually hurts me, and I think this is why ETH holders get, this is why it hurts, because there is something deeper to believe in with ETH than there is with Solana or Sui or whatever. I don't think you have believers in Solana. You have people who think it's great tech, whereas you actually have believers in ETH. And that's why it's harder to get rid of, because you believe in the decentralized nature of it a bit more. You know, whether one tech stack is better than another tech is like, people can argue about that. But I think the belief in ETH is what hurts. But I think it's correct. Like but I'm just not sure the value is attached to it. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Adam, any final thoughts there? Definitely want to cut into Ledge to see where you're thinking, where your head is at. I know you're still holding some ETH as well. All right, straight to Ledge then.
I think that I wanted to add is that there was a report by Electric Capital that for the first time in 8 years, looking back at the year 2024, the number of new devs joining ETH has been flipped by the number of new devs joining Solana. So that was because it's something we spoke about for quite a long time. ETH is building multiple cities, and there's so many builders out there, but now there's someone building the city with more builders. And ultimately, ETH is still the second largest cryptocurrency. I mean, yes, I know we are down 50% whatever over the year, but it's still trading at a 220 billion market cap. Then you could make the argument that a lot of the stablecoin market cap the majority is definitely taking place on EVM chains and on ETH mainnet. And ultimately, we're something that is useful, that is just needed to work and to participate in all those opportunities that you mentioned. Like, how high does it need to be? It works perfectly fine at 1.8K. It would work perfectly fine at 1K and at 100 bill market cap as well. And I feel like the consensus still is that it makes sense for ETH to be the second largest cryptocurrency because all of those things. But the market is still, even after all those years, not really sure how to value it and what the best analogy is. I mean, just look back on the last 500 episodes of the show that we did. We had venture capitalists saying, oh, it's basically like the digital app. It's an app store, like Apple's app store, but it's on blockchain. No, it's a commodity. It should trade like oil. It's digital oil because it's used to fuel an entire industry. So just over those like last 2.5 years, I feel like the analogies how we describe ETH have changed so much, and we don't have like this strong consensus narrative and one-liner. ETH is this and that, and for that reason it should be valued at this price. And until this doesn't get sorted out, when you don't find a convincing narrative to move forward, I just don't see ETH pumping significantly.
Yeah. And just to throw one thing into the mix before we close out, because I think it's important to put on people's radar, although the price will have already caught people's attention. Sui did a Basecamp out here. Basecamp meaning, I think it's just the name for their like big IRL conference style event. And I didn't get to go there, but every single person who attended said it was fantastic, like absolutely fantastic. I also didn't go to the breakpoints of Solana, but if I'm comparing reactions from the people who went, it felt very similar to me, how people left those events feeling about the ecosystem, sharing what they learned from on the ground. So, you know, that's another one now in the mix for this L1 fast, L1 smooth UX, good tech, good founders, great energy in the developing ecosystem. That's another one in the mix. So just putting that out there as another one to keep an eye on. And the price is already reflecting that, to be honest. So that is that. Good show. Got a little bit emotional there when it came to our our ETH holdings, or our former ETH holdings. But it's good to have that conversation as usual. Just a reminder, friends, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour live on X Video, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Thank you so much to my co-hosts, Legendary and Adam, co-founder, Proof of Play and Pirate Nation. Thanks, Funky, for your contributions as always. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with you tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a wonderful day. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.